Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. For instance, NASA is the world's largest magic show. 9/11 was a planned demolition and Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man, are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you.
All right, Nick, let's go and get into your book, The Immortality of the Gods. Give me a brief synopsis, the meat and potatoes of this book.
Well, basically, it's a study of how the gods that reportedly, manipulated the human race, made us what we were, what we are to this day. When you look at the stories of them, they have one thing in common, and that is their incredible longevity, immortality. And of course, if ancient extraterrestrials did develop some sort of immortality pill, drink, whatever, the big question is, how did they do it? And the reason I wrote that book is because the whole issue of sort of immortality fascinates me. The idea that maybe one day we could find a cure for old age and even possibly for death. And when you look at the ancient stories of the gods coming down, they all had this one thing in common, that they could live forever, or for at least extensively massive amounts of time. But to do so, they were all required to essentially ingest various products. For example, the gods of India, they would ingest this liquid called amrita. Now, with the Greek gods, they would live on ambrosia. Then in the Bible, although it didn't give them immortality, you had this mysterious product called manna, which came out of the sky and fed the Israelites. And there's also the issue of what's become known as white powder gold, the idea of alchemically altering gold, and certain aspects of it can reportedly have a beneficial effect on the human body. And if you go back to the Bible, you find various biblical characters like Adam, Seth, Methuselah, all had massive lifespans. Now, what's particularly intriguing is that one of the people in this lineage that went from Adam through Methuselah and so on, one of them was Noah. Now, although it's not mentioned in the Bible, if you look at the book of Enoch, which actually isn't in the Bible itself, it talks about when Noah was born, he didn't look like a regular baby. His skin was extremely pale, like white. His eyes were sort of pinkish, fiery red colour, and his hair was white. And to us, that sounds almost like an albino. But there are theories that the Anunnaki may actually have looked like a human albino, very pale skin, white hair, and sort of pinkish eyes. Now, they weren't albinos, but they had that colouring. And if you read the book of Enoch, it creates this creepy image of how everybody was terrified of how Noah looked. He didn't look human. So when you add to that the fact that he lived, for centuries, you have to wonder, was there some sort of splicing of genes that allowed for certain humans to have massively extensive lifespans? And one of them may well have been King Gilgamesh of Uruk, which is part of Iraq today. And in the book of Gilgamesh, it talks about how he became obsessed with trying to achieve immortality. And he reportedly ruled over Uruk for 130 years. And as I said earlier, we don't know how long he was in power for in terms of his age when he became king. He could have, if he was 20 or 30, he could have lived to 160, 170. But he became obsessed with trying to find the answer to immortality, eventually gave up and accepted he was just going to get 150, 160 years, which actually isn't bad if you think about it compared to us. So in other words, all across the Middle East, various parts of the world which were flourishing, where the gods came down, you had not just the gods living incredible lifespans, but you had certain people who the key or the secret to immortality was also given. And it may just have been through science and medicine, the issue of actually being able to slow down the aging process. And today, we know why people age. It's due to something called the Hayflick effect. And essentially what it is, the human body, the cells, split and duplicate only so many times. And after that, they start to degrade, and you just get older and older. If we could actually bring that process not to a halt, but actually continue it, so the cells continue to duplicate at a healthy rate, continue to split, essentially we could slow the aging process extremely quickly. But we just don't have the technology yet to allow us to do that, but we know what we do need to do. So I talk about that in the book, how science is now actually looking at ways to achieve, doubling or tripling our lifespans, if we can find the key to do it. Now, of course, there are other ways as well, like cloning. One sort of ambitious theory where we're not at this stage yet, but if we could clone ourselves, and you could, every, say, 30 or 40 years, your body starts to age. And so your memories, your thoughts, your personality is downloaded into another clone of you, which is made when you're just, say, 20. So, from 20 to 50, you could live, the life you want. You reach 50, I want to be 20 again. So your mind, your memories, your personality is placed into another 20-year-old clone. Another 30 years go by, you reach 50, you want to be 20 again. And that process would go over and over again. Now, of course, it's very ambitious. Cloning hasn't been overly successful so far. But the fact that we're digging into this does suggest that one day we may be able to not necessarily keep death at bay, but certainly look back into the 25th century and say those poor old people in the 21st century had 80 years and we've got 400. That's not out of the question.
What if we already had that technology, but the elite are keeping that erased and keeping it out of the public eye? Every time a new advancement comes, they whitewash it and just throw it away. Because do you really think they want us to live that long and have, like you state, the immortality of the gods whenever they want to be the gods over us?
Well, that's an important thing, because if you look in the Bible and other religious texts, the people, even way back then, thousands of years ago, who were given the secret of immortality, they were elite types back then. The whole issue of like Adam, Noah, Seth, Methuselah, they were all part of this elite family. They were all, their genealogy was all connected. So they were an elite then. King Uruk was a king. And, you have the Greek gods, and they would bestow the secrets of ambrosia onto certain people that were in favor with the gods. So even back then, there was never an intention to share this technology with everybody. So you could make a good case that today's elite could well have actually been, looking for the secrets and keeping it to themselves. I mean, with the war in Iraq, Iraq, years ago, thousands of years ago, part of it was Uruk, where Gilgamesh ruled. There are rumors about certain documents, ancient manuscripts, having been found in the lead up to the Gulf War, the war in Iraq, and potentially revealing some of these secrets. And that may have been why they were sort of purloined from the museum. They fell into the hands of the elite, who are now trying to figure out what they can do with this technology. But this elite would clearly not want everyone to live forever, because in no time at all the planet would be packed if nobody ever died, So I can easily understand a situation where they're feverishly trying to give immortality to themselves and their fellow elite types and those they might want to bring into the program. But the average person, they're just fine about us just having 80 or 90 years or whatever. So.
Yeah, and so you think that they are actually working on this technology? Because, of course, if it was readily available, of course, I think David Rockefeller would have still be living today. He had multiple heart transplants and everything like that. So it doesn't matter how many billions you have. It seems like if it exists, it's being well kept secret.
Yeah, I think it's been well kept secret. Now, in terms of the elite, many of them may not be people with visibly famous faces. We think of the people who, you talk of the Rockefellers and so on, they may actually be on the second or third tier. The ones that are on the top tier, maybe most people never ever see them. So nobody realizes that, they're every 30 or 40 years, they pop up again with a new identity, new driver's license, new names, which wouldn't be that difficult to do. And they continually have a new life for them. But the money and the wealth and the influence they've got continues, So I think that's a possibility.